Hi everyone, welcome to Memory Keeping Monday. I'm Lisa Truesdell, a garden girl at 2peasinabucket.com. September is all about fall at 2Ps, and as I was looking for photos to use for my project, I came across these two photos of my youngest son. They were taken 2 years apart at the farmer's market down the street from where we live. I loved that he was pointing at his pumpkin the same way each time and couldn't wait to use them on a layout together. Here's a look at the collection of products I'll be using today. I don't typically like to work with themed product, so I just pulled together some colors that I liked from a mix of manufacturers. I'll bring in a bit of fall with some leaves cut with my Cameo, but everything else I've pulled is pretty generic in pattern and theme. Before I get started on the page, I wanted to talk a little bit about the color scheme that I'll be using today. I'm not a big fan of the typical yellow, orange, and dark green that tends to dominate most fall lines, so I opted to bring together something lighter and brighter. I started with yellow, a bit of orange, and some wood grain to fit the feel of the season. You can see that I'm using a lot of neutral and light tones here. I finished off the colors with teal and navy as accents. This color scheme has more contrast and energy than typical autumn colors, and I love the way that my photos look with it. To finish off my page kit, I'll be using this alphabet from Crate paper. It's got a subtle ledger pattern that will match my background paper. Then I brought in some flat embellishments. I have some heart stickers from Studio Calico, a journaling card from Ali Edwards, and a few little tags from Elle's Studio. I like embellishments like these to add an extra layer or in groupings with other accents. I tend to use a lot of straight lines in my pages, so I love to add little round accents to break them up. I rarely finish a page without adding brads, buttons, or badges. The ones I'm using today are by Bella Boulevard, My Mind's Eye, Basic Gray, and Studio Calico. I also grabbed a stamp set from Ali Edwards and a few rolls of tape. I'll be using 3 styles today. This big one really isn't a washi tape. It's about twice the width and has a texture that's really more like packing tape. Both of the other tapes are washi, and I thought the red in both of them would bring in a nice pop of color. I'm doing an 8.5 by 11 page, so I've opted to keep my photos on the smaller side. I printed them both at 2 by 3 inches. These photos were taken 2 years apart in the same location, but the colors really didn't work together. The earlier photo had a funky green in the background and then another green in his sweater, so I opted to go black and white with it. I like the contrast of using black and white with color, and it reinforces the then and now theme. I've added a title to my page, and now I'm going to build a layered photo mat. I'll start by adding this tape to the bottom of the navy paper. This tape isn't as transparent as washi, but you can still see the color of the paper through it. This stuff doesn't tear, so you'll have to grab your scissors to trim off the ends. I like how the arrows on the tape fit with how Sam's pointing in my photos. This block will be the first layer in my photo mat. Everything else we add will build outwards from here. I'll add it to my background, making sure it's centered over the top of my title. Then I'll add a smaller piece of Studio Calico paper alongside it. The bright yellow is a nice pop against the navy. I'm not using a lot of adhesive at this stage, so I can slide things over and under each other. The next layer will be this Ali Edwards journaling card. Instead of using it to hold words, I'm planning to use it as an accent behind my photos. The pictures will go on top, and you can see that they'll overlap all 3 papers that we used to make our photo mat. This is a super simple composition to start the page, but the layers we've added here make it more dynamic. I added some typewritten journaling next to my title, and then I machine stitched across all of the layers on my photo mat. I'm a bit in love with all the roller stamps out there right now, and wanted to use this Amy Tangerine date stamp on my page. Unfortunately, the year started 2012, and my photos were both taken prior to that. To get around this, I just inked up the word part of the stamp and added that to my page, and then I went back and put the dates on with a standard office date stamp. I also added a strip of heart patterned washi under my photos. I really didn't like how the photos hit right at the top of the tape that I added earlier, and I wanted a little more overlap here. This tape is similar in tone to the triangles, so it solves the problem without looking too busy. It's a small detail, but it makes a big difference in the design. I wanted to bring a bit more definition to the left side of my photo mat, so I grabbed this L Studio tag. I'll tuck it right under this pattern paper on the side. I really like how the red line on it helps to define the edge of this side of the page. I cut these leaves with my Silhouette Cameo. I cut them from a wood grain pattern paper and then backed them with a neutral print. As I mentioned earlier, I don't tend to buy a lot of themed products, so I rely on my Cameo to fill in the blanks when I want to use them. I'll group 2 of the leaves together on one side of my photos, then add the third to the other side. I'm sliding them under my photos a bit. I like how it grounds them into the background and leaves my photos as the top layer. I like to add borders to all of my pages, and on this one I'm using a dark wood grain at the bottom. I like to use a darker color at the base of the page since it has more visual weight. For the top, I'll just use a simple teal dot. I'm not using a lot of adhesive right now since I'll be stitching these in place later. To finish off the bottom border, I want to add a little section of these Amy Tangerine houses. The warm wood grain is a good fit with the fall theme, and they'll just add a little bit of interest to the corner of the page. With all of my major elements in place, I'm ready to finish off this layout with a few more embellishments. I'm starting with a little circle tag. It will go right between my photos. I like how the ampersand joins these photos together in your mind, and as a bonus, it will disguise the fact that when I trimmed my photos, one ended up a tiny bit taller than the other one. I'm accenting each photo with a number brad from the basic gray clippings line. I thought this would be a good way to note Sam's age in each photo. They also help ground the pictures back to the rest of the page. These craft heart stickers will go right along a line in this patterned paper. Since they're neutral, they'll blend into this collage style paper easily and add just another bit of texture. My last embellishments will be a button and a brad, and you can see how the brads will form a visual triangle that will draw your eye across the page. Now when I look at it, I notice that I've got 2 red elements on this page, so I'll finish off a second visual triangle by adding a bit of this red grid washi tape up to the top. Here are a couple closer looks at the finished layout. I really like the effect of the title and the background being so similar in tone. These stickers have enough dimension that they're easy to read, but their pattern and color don't add a lot of weight to this part of the page. If I'd used an alphabet with more contrast to the background paper, it would have thrown off the visual balance of my design. I really like how this grouping of elements turned out. This pattern paper was a perfect backdrop to add a little collage of accents. The yellow catches your eye when you look at the page, and then the angle of the leaves leads you into the photos. Thank you for joining me today. I hope I've inspired you to mix up your color schemes the next time you're scrapping fall photos. Have a great day, and don't forget to join us next week for another Memory Keeping Monday at 2peasinabucket.com.